Hi, welcome to the Vaguely Anime Podcast. I am one of the two hosts today, Michael, with other host, Sage.
Hi.
It is Cultured Corner. And by we're not actually necessarily talking culture, but that is our team name.
It's just the two people who happen to be into cultured things.
Yeah, it is the cultured duo, but
Yeah.
that doesn't sound as good. So and,
Yeah.
and we're not a couple, so it can't be cultured couple either.
Cultured couple. No, we're going to talk about House of the Dragon. I watched it. Michael didn't. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I don't really care.
Yeah.
So I was going to maybe give a shit when it all finished. Apparently it did, according to Sage,
Yeah,
about
just
2 minutes ago, which she told me.
Yeah, season 1 just ended.
So maybe I'll binge it at some point.
Yeah.
Like Rings of Power, because I haven't done that yet either.
Rings of Power, I don't know why Mark keeps insisting I watch it, but I have literally no interest in the Lord of the Rings franchise, which I know is kind of blasphemy.
Well, a bit, but also you like Game of Thrones, but you don't like Lord of the Rings.
There's just something about Lord of the Rings that I could literally never get into. I don't know what it is, because I remember I watched the first 3 movies, I think, as a kid, and it just wasn't, something about it just didn't grasp me, you know?
When was the last time you watched them?
A long time ago now.
Could always
Maybe
give it
if I
another shot.
came back to it, I'd be more into it. But even when I was watching Rings of Power, I was just yeah, it's there.
I mean,
it's-
I can't speak on the quality of Rings of Power because I haven't watched it yet. But I have been hearing people still, are saying the movies are better. But also, I feel like it's hard to compare a movie
Right.
to show. So.
Right. I mean, I think it's pretty good quality. The budget is really there. I think they do a good job. I'm just not super invested in it. It's something
Right.
that I'll just watch for funsies, but it's not something that I'm engaged in watching it, if that makes sense.
Right. I still can't believe that Game of Thrones even got the prequel with how fucking bad they dropped the ball for so long. I figured that shit was done. I was once they were oh, because for a minute there, it sounded like they canceled it. And I was
Right.
oh, well, I didn't give a shit
Well,
anyway.
well,
And then they're we are making it. And I was
Well, wasn't
why?
it before Game of Thrones
It was
shit the
before.
bed?
It was
that they
because-
were going to do a Jon Snow spin-off story as
They
well.
were going to do a bunch of shit.
of spin-offs,
because
and then
the creators,
season 8 happened,
Yeah.
and it shit the bed.
Because the creators stopped giving a shit, and then they were oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they had I want to say 2 or 3 spin-offs that were gonna be in a thing, and then they canned all of them, and then I know House of the Dragons was the one that kept going, but even still at some point it was that shit ain't coming out,
Right.
and then it did, and I was but why? I have had zero I had and still have zero interest in it, because the ending of Game of Thrones just put me to a point where I was I don't really care
Put
about this
such a
universe
bad
anymore.
taste in your mouth.
Yeah, it was just it made me not I don't care to revisit it anymore. I don't even care to go back and watch the show.
Just
if
watch
I-
seasons 1 through 4, and then
Yeah.
just pretend that's where it ends.
If
It was all a
I don't
major
think-
cliffhanger.
Yeah, but I don't think I would do it on my own. If I was dating somebody or whatever, and they were hey, I haven't watched it, I'd be yeah, all right, I'll go through it again. But unless there is that outside force,
oh, somebody else who's I've never seen this, will you watch it with me kind
right?
of thing?
Unless there is an outside force influencing me to watch it, I have no desire to go back to it. I'll watch some clips of the cool fights, but
You know what else? This is unrelated to Game of Thrones
Okay.
or House of the Dragon, but it's also an HBO show. But I've been watching Westworld.
I still haven't gotten to that either.
Holy shit. I am in love with this show. I'm on season 3. I think season 4 is the current season right now.
It's still going.
Season 4, I think, wrapped up at this point already, but it started airing this year, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah, because that started going at the same time as Game of Thrones, near the end of it.
oh, I was going
And
to
so
say, not,
and so
I was
people,
thinking you were meaning the
so
beginning.
people were oh man, Game of Thrones and Westworld, HBO Max or HBO is fucking rocking TV,
Right.
lately, and then
But yeah, no, I think if you like more, it's more like sci-fi.
yeah, I know there are
kinda-
robots.
Yeah,
involved.
robots, things like that. I think it's really good. I also have a pretty low standard, but I do think this is really exceptionally made.
Yeah, it's funny for how much I can binge anime,
Right.
it takes me so much longer to actually watch a TV show that's not animated.
Okay, so Mark gets mad at me because he'll say, watch this show, but I won't get around to it for so long
For
because
like 4 years.
if I watch especially something live action like a Game of Thrones or Westworld or like Dexter or something, I am watching it completely focused, like
Still haven't watched Dexter
like
either.
brain on 100%, like just laser focused on the show because I want to like really think about what's going on
Right.
and things like that, which honestly gets exhausting to just like be so hyper focused, especially if it's a long show. But I will say, when I was watching Dexter, I had to drop it after season 4. It just got so rough.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was one of those shows where the ending was like atrocious, wasn't it?
Oh my god, it is horrendous. And it's so funny to me in that it has a very similar track record with Game of Thrones. Seasons 1 through 4, absolute masterpiece, incredible. If it ended at season 4, I would literally be like, this was the greatest show start to finish ever made.
Right.
Perfectly tied up, like excellent. But then they kept going and it became kind of a hot mess.
It's always that balance, right?
And
Where
it
you're
was-
like, I wish this thing would get more seasons, but also what I got was really great.
But what's funny is, like, in Game of Thrones, where you have 1 through 4 is great, 5 and 6 things get like a little worrisome, and then 7 and 8 is just like, all right, we've like totally lost it at this point.
Right.
Dexter follows that exact same track record, which is so funny to me. And I think, what was Dexter, Showtime?
I can look it up.
I'm pretty sure it was Showtime. But anyway, House of the Dragon. My biggest complaint, I guess, and this isn't even really a complaint, it was just something that kind of threw me off in the beginning, was every episode essentially has
It was Showtime.
at least like a year or more time gap
Wait, what?
in House of the Dragon.
Each episode
Yeah.
has a year time gap.
Yeah, like time jump. Which
Interesting.
at first was kind of like weird for me because you know how Game of Thrones in the beginning was extreme.
Dexter had 8 seasons?
Yeah, that's why I said it had a very similar track record because it also had 8 seasons.
Jesus Christ. I didn't realize I had them. All right, anyway, continue.
Just watch 1 through 4 and pretend like it ends there. Trust me. It will greatly
Didn't they get
enhance
like
your viewing experience.
Didn't they get like a final season where people said was actually pretty good?
Dexter New Blood, I think it was called, and it was like a 1 season like wrap it up. I don't really know. Because do you want me to tell you how Dexter ends? Or do you not? Empty airways. We love it.
I'll say no for
Okay,
now.
okay. But the only thing, like, in my opinion, with New Blood is it kind of like is following Dexter after the ending of season 8. And they could have done, I think, a lot more with it, especially because it was only 10 episodes. Like, you could have written a really tight story right there. But it's just a shadow of its former self, especially if you compare it to seasons 1 through 4.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I don't think it's better or worse than 7 and 8.
Right. All right.
So, but yeah. So the years-long time jumps in House of the Dragon was really throwing me off at first. Only because, like, it would be like episode 1. Here we gotta, like, fast track, introduce everybody that's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. End of episode. Which is fine. That's episode 1. That's what it needs to do because there's like 50,000 characters and everybody has really similar sounding names, so it gets extremely confusing.
Right.
Especially because, so at least in Game of Thrones you have like the different families, so each family has like kind of a different like theme of names, if that makes sense.
Right.
But these are all Targaryens and Valerians, and all of their names sound literally the same, which is extremely annoying.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really annoying.
But then you have season 2 where you would think, okay, now we're gonna, pick up where we left off, but it will be like, bam, time jump. Here's this essentially completely new set of circumstances,
Right.
but like still going off of the previous episode, if that makes sense. It's really weird. I thought it was jarring at first. You kind of get used to it. And the characters in this show are so hateable
Are they in a good way?
and so detestable in a really good way, because
Okay.
like you get really I think that's the intention, and if it's not, I don't know what your intention was otherwise.
Right.
But yeah, I think they do a really good job of like fleshing out people and like not being like, this is your inherently good guy, inherently good bad guy kind of thing, but like there's a team that you kind of start rooting for type deal, but you like see the other side, you're like, yeah, I can understand. You know what I mean?
Right. So the only thing I know about this show is that every time I see a promotional image of it, I have to do a double take to see if that's Emilia Clarke as the Targaryen lady.
As Rhaenyra.
Sure. I have no idea what the fuck the character's name is.
She's like the main character.
Sure. I just, every time I see promotional images, I'm like, it's the same
girl,
hair.
Young girl or older?
Young.
Okay, so in the first 5 episodes is with like the younger cast, especially for Rhaenyra and Alicent, who are like essentially like the 2 leads minus Daemon.
Is there nudity in the show?
A little bit. It's
It's not Game of Thrones season 1
No,
level.
I think it's really toned down compared to Game of Thrones. Even like the few sex scenes that you have in there, I think they are extremely tame. Especially if you compare it to like early season Game of Thrones,
Right.
where it was like really aggressively in your face.
Yeah.
Especially like in certain scenarios where it was kind of uncomfortable to watch, but like I get why you did that because it's supposed to be uncomfortable, so you know what I mean?
Right.
But also I think in House of the Dragon, like the sex scenes that we get are, I guess they're just
Vanilla.
Yeah, essentially.
Like regular like TV sex scenes where it's like,
Close up of like hand on face,
Right.
hand on shoulder, like things like that kind of like TV sex scene, or even like a PG-13 movie, where you
the
get like
boring kind of sex scene.
where you get like, oh, the cloth is slightly falling
Right.
off kind of thing.
Yeah, every single person in all of human history, as we know, all women always, when they sit up, have the have the comforter with them and the sheets, and then when they get up, take the sheets off the bed
With
and walk
them.
around with them.
Yeah.
Because every human ever,
Oh yes.
every female
But then
does
what
that.
I always thought
And guys are always wearing
The boxers, yes.
every time. I know after I have sex, I
boxers on
immediately-
them. You don't even take them off.
No, I just open the flap. And then right when you're done, you're like, all right, cool, put it back in, and you just sit there. And all girls just glue the sheets to them.
I also think it's very funny in like, especially TV or like PG-13 movie sex scenes, where they'll go under the covers, but it's not like a sheet. It's like a heavy ass winter duvet. And I'm like, you are roasting in there. Like that.
Because most people absolutely just like throw that stuff off to the side or whatever, just fucking.
Like, you must feel so uncomfortable under there.
Let me ask you: have you ever once actually like sat up, like minus like if you got interrupted or something? Have you ever once like sat up and like walked around or like covered yourself with the sheet anytime?
I don't think so. Unless it was like cold.
Right.
But then I would be doing more like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I don't think I've ever done that, because if I'm already like having sex with you,
Why am I covering myself
you
afterwards?
already saw literally everything. Like,
You sit up and the tits flop out. It's not like it matters really.
like I don't understand why I would be like, now I must have my modesty.
I just did everything that you just saw, and now I need my modesty.
I don't know. Maybe he had his eyes closed the whole time.
He's actually blind.
Well, then if he was blind, it wouldn't matter anyway.
It's for your modesty.
I see.
It's for his modesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like every single time, I know that they have to do it, but every
Right.
single time a character like will sit up and hold the sheet and then get up and walk with it, I'm like, nobody does that. No one person fucking does that.
But it's also, I'm like, okay, you have the sheets on. The sheet is on both of y'all. You got up and took that sheet away. Man's is freezing cold in that bed now.
They're used to it. All right, so like anytime I have been in that scenario, I have never woken up with sheets on me like once. I was pushed off the bed. I was like just sprawled out. At one point I woke up, and so like, you know, you tuck your sheets into the bed, and at the time I had a mattress frame that was like the mattress like sat in the frame.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Like it was one of the ones with like shelves under it.
Right,
and
like
so,
the box ones.
Yeah. And so it sat in it. So, you know, tucked everything under there. And I woke up and I was like literally like where the sheets were folded in, like the mattress was on one side and then the floor. And I am like off the mattress, but being like hammocked in the fucking sheets as the person is just like sprawled out. And I was like,
how did this happen to me?
yeah, I was like, all right, cool. Like,
I'll just suffer.
I ended up getting like a separate blanket and just sleeping with that the rest of the time.
Yeah, you gotta. There are times where Mark and I, especially in the winter time, this drives me crazy. Mark refuses to have the blanket in the winter time. I mean, year round, really. But I get really cold, so I want the blanket.
Right.
So usually what I have to do is put half the blanket on me and then half the blanket's like hanging off the bed. But then he tries to take the entire thing away from me come like 1 or 2 in the morning where he decides now I'm cold. Give me some of the blanket.
Right.
So there have been times where I just instinctively put a second blanket on the bed for when he takes it and I just go whoop. Cover myself up again. So I'm not chilly.
I apparently run pretty hot, so
all men.
Yeah, so
all men.
So
furnaces. I don't know why y'all.
It
are
just
like
became like I'd wake up and it just like cuddle.
No.
Thing, and
No.
so that's how I would wake up.
I
and
don't
like,
know
oh,
this
okay.
experience because if anything, I'm like, you need to get the fuck away from me. You are literally 5,000 degrees. You're burning my skin right now. I have a sunburn right now. I have 3rd-degree burns on my arm.
Yet you're saying you're always cold. Pick one.
No, because the thing is, it's so hot. So if you're like, ooh, yeah, warm, cuddles, in literally 5 seconds, you're like, I am melting.
I will say one of the.
I would rather be cold.
I am a big proponent of cuddles.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that says they aren't, you're wrong. They're the best thing in the like. You could be suffering with the worst depression, and you cuddle a girl that's into you or guy or whatever you're into, and it should cure your depression.
Yeah, that's clinical fact.
Yeah, clinical fact.
Researched and studied.
Really,
Papers about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I was going somewhere with that.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
And then I lost it.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
Back to House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I'll think about what the fuck I was talking about.
Yeah, if you do, just say it.
Yeah.
So what's his face is in it? He was the doctor in Doctor Who. He has like a long face.
Matt Smith.
Matt Smith.
I feel like he got uglier as he got older. His eyebrows became so much more like sorry, he doesn't have eyebrows, but like his brow bone like is so much more pronounced now.
Oh, really?
It looks very odd to me.
I can't decide if he's attractive or not.
He's not to me.
Like, I think in Doctor Who, he looked really nerdy, and I didn't like how he looked.
I thought he looked more attractive in Doctor Who.
But I will say, him with the white blonde hair
I remember what I was going to say.
Is a fucking look. Like, I usually don't, like, usually if I see, like, pictures of him online or whatever, I'm like, yeah, whatever, like, he's fine. But him with the white blonde hair, there's just something about it. In the one episode, he has it cut short, and it looks excellent. And I'm like, see, you got to just be doing this all the time, my guy. This works for you.
I remember what I was going to
say
which is cuddling's great, right? But as a guy, you have to sacrifice an arm circulation for however long that cuddling session is going.
Yeah.
Because you just have to accept that for about 5 minutes, you will be in pain. And then 5 minutes later, you won't feel your hand again or your arm.
Goes numb.
And then after however long that you are cuddling, you will have the pins and needles feeling for about 30 minutes until all the blood flow gets back. And then you'll be like, that was the worst. Yet somehow I feel great. And that's just the cycle of the experience, because the arm has to go somewhere, and it's usually like like under their head,
Right.
or something. Or if you get lucky, you get it between the like shoulder and the head, and you get the
Yeah,
neck
that's
spot.
the ideal.
And like, because then you're slightly losing the circulation, but not enough that it really matters. And then you're set until they shift.
But
and
if
then
you're
it's just-
under the back, you're done for.
yeah. Yep. No, you're screwed. Like the like hug cuddle, you're usually fucked.
I'm sorry, this is totally unrelated to hugging and cuddling, but I need to tell you this.
Okay.
So, there is one scene in House of the Dragon
Okay.
that is just about the most horrendous, awful, worst shit I've ever seen on television. Of like imagine watching someone miscarry live. But it's not even miscarry, it's a stillbirth. And I'm like, I don't just tell me that it happened. I don't want to see it.
Like, you watch it completely happen?
Yes.
Like, is that part of the nudity aspect that we're talking about?
No.
Okay, so you don't see like
No.
front on and all of it happening.
No, but like it's pretty brutal, bro. I was watching, I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Television.
Yeah, it was rough. I feel like that was weird. That was some weird shit. I was like, what?
I'll probably watch the show at some point soon-ish.
Yeah.
It's at some point. Like, I'm also behind on some anime that are currently coming out, so.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what do you like? I don't know. I guess what are your general like overall opinions on House of the Dragon? Like, is it worth actually watching? Like,
I thought it was worth watching. I was also watching it week to week. Like, I don't know what the binging experience would be like. I feel like it wouldn't be bad though. But no, I really enjoyed it. I think they have very smart, end of episode cliffhangers, like stay tuned for next week type deal things.
right.
I think those are fun. Also, they also decided to do those like post episode like commentaries, which are essentially just as bad as the post episode commentaries of Game of Thrones. You can just skip it.
Right.
Because the commentaries are really just like pulling random shit out their ass.
You know what I miss?
What?
I miss behind the scenes things and credits.
See, I would
Like
love
bloopers and stuff.
I would love. What happened to the bloopers?
So
credits.
So I understand that these are not necessarily conventionally good movies, but I fucking love them because they are my guilty pleasure. The Rush Hour movies, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
3 is my favorite out of the three of them. But one of my favorite parts about those movies is that when the movie ends, all of the credits have the bloopers through the movie, and it's incredible because you're just seeing Jackie Chan like trying to like say something, he fucks it up, he's trying to do some stunt, some prop breaks or whatever. Like, that shit's great. We should go back to credits having bloopers because then you're gonna also make people stay for the goddamn fucking credits.
What I just want to know when like credits with bloopers stop being a thing, because I
think because they wanted things to be taken more seriously, which is lame. Or because then they gave people incentive to get the DVDs.
I guess, but like DVDs are not a thing anymore, so get over it.
Like, credits should have bloopers in them. I don't care if I just watched the fucking Godfather or Martin Scorsese's newest film. I want bloopers afterwards.
If Toy Story is going to give me animated bloopers,
which are incredible,
in their credits, that they have to do so much more work to make, y'all can give me some freaking bloopers in the credits.
Of some dude of fucking, Robert De Niro like fucking up some line,
Yeah.
Like, come on, like nobody's perfect.
Like just show me like Captain America on wires and he's like shaking around.
Like, because I'll watch because people put the bloopers on like online
Yeah.
for those movies, and they're fucking great.
They're really good.
Like, yeah, like Infinity War just ended. It's spoilers for Infinity War.
Y'all had like 10 years to watch it.
Yeah, but who knows? Spoilers for Infinity War. ends, everybody gets fucking dusted away. It's sad. The logo appears and then gets dusted. And then it's just like, oh. And then all of a sudden cuts to fucking goddamn Tom Holland trying to make a jump and slipping and falling. Like, I want bloopers. I don't care how serious the ending of this movie was. The entire movie, we should have bloopers back in goddamn movies.
Yeah. And also, I feel like taking movies like more seriously, it's like this, especially like if we're using the example of like Marvel movies, right? It's a superhero movie. Like, come on.
Well, I think
how
also,
serious do we need to be?
I think also the problem with general, like, seriousness increase in Hollywood is that we lost like movies like the 90s and 2000s, like rom-coms and comedy stuff, where like you can't really like mid-budget like rom-coms and stuff don't really exist anymore.
Don't. It's
and
so weird.
It's like because everything now needs to be taken a little more seriously, even if it's a jokey movie.
Yeah.
But like, and so you lost like the 90s and 2000s like charm. Like when people look back at that, like Rush Hour is a perfect example of like a film that feels like it wouldn't really be made anymore,
right?
Unless enough fans were like, hey, you should make Rush Hour 4. Like those are the exceptions when like people are like, we should get a sequel to this movie, like Hocus Pocus,
right?
Where like,
I thought that was cute and charming.
it was,
yeah.
But like, for the most part, unless you are something that was established and then people keep wanting that sequel, you're not really like Hocus Pocus does not feel like a movie that would be made today.
Wait, do you know, just like my 2 cents on that kind of like mid budget movies not being made, I feel like they are being made, but direct to streaming. Like, you remember like direct to DVD movies?
Yeah.
Like that, but to streaming. Because like, think about Netflix's output of like movies and how I feel like a lot of them are pretty bad.
Yeah. They are.
But
who watches most of them?
But what's funny to me is like they have that very similar feel of like a mid-budget movie from the 2000s, except it doesn't have any charm.
Right.
I'm like, why are you doing a mid-budget movie that's supposed to be like inherently goofy and just like for funsies, but you're making it super serious? Like
I feel like you're just not getting movies like Knocked Up or like Rush Hour or Hocus Pocus. Like, I just can't envision those types of movies being made again today in the same style. Like, it would be more serious or in some fashion. Like, and I feel like you could maybe argue the point that like Deadpool is kind of that, but even still, it's still in some vein taking itself more seriously than those movies ever felt.
And
like
I also think, or if Deadpool is the example, Deadpool is like taking itself seriously, but it's such a high budget like film, and it's like, I think, written pretty tightly to the point where it's not like, oh, let's just throw this on the page and then you say those lines.
Plus, I think Hollywood also suffers a bit from like the fact that they don't really make like adult movies anymore. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean like and I was thinking about, I've always kind of thought about this, but I don't know if people know the like How to Drink YouTube channel. He like makes cocktails from stuff. I follow him on TikTok, and he made a TikTok about this, and it was making me think about it more, where he was talking about how they don't really make like adult movies anymore. And some of the points he made was like, most of the time, if you have any level of like media knowledge, when you go into a movie, like, and even if you're not necessarily very media inclined, like, you can kind of feel how an ending's gonna be. Like, you can go into a movie and be like, oh, like, that person probably will die at some point. Like, that person, like,
you can get a sense of like what kind of tropes they're gonna fit into.
And his point was like, that feels like it, that's not like an adult movie. Like, an adult movie should be something that is constantly making you try to figure out what you're doing, and things are happening that you're not expecting. And where if it ever is like giving you exposition on something, that's not it believing that you can just figure this out and stuff like that.
I feel like I agree with that statement, and I feel like a part of it is, I feel like people who are making movies now compared to the 2000s or the 90s. I don't know that they just think people are stupider now, that they can't like comprehend basic concepts.
And like 90s, 2000s also did this shit. I feel like if you have to go pretty kind of far back to find it, unless you're going like Blade Runner, which really doesn't describe anything, and that's like what I would argue an adult movie, or like, you know, we're going way back like 50s and stuff like that. But
or I think if you think about like how a lot of movies are consumed today, especially I feel like there's a lot more younger people watching movies because you don't have to be like, Mom, take me to the movie theater.
Right.
You can just pull it up on like any streaming service.
Yeah.
So I feel like in part they're probably dumbing it down because like a 13-year-old is watching it and they think 13-year-olds don't have brains.
Right.
Which is partly true, but not completely. Like I think they have enough wherewithal to like pick up on basic concepts without being told things.
In that same vein, so there was a game that came out recently called Scorn, which have you ever seen Alien?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how like the aesthetic of Alien,
right?
Like all the weird like gross alien looking tech and stuff,
right?
So that's created by a guy named H.R. Geiger, very very famous like production designer and stuff. The Scorn is based on like his look, and so everything's really gross and like weird looking. It's awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Very gross.
If it has like a similar alien aesthetic, I feel like that would look good.
Oh, like it looks good, but it is gross.
Because
like that's what it's going to be. Yeah, that's what
slimy
right.
and kind of like grotesque.
And take the marketing of how they marketed the game aside, because they kind of marketed it to look like it was like a first-person shooter with that aesthetic.
Okay.
Which it's not at all, and so people were very upset about that. But
why would you market it like that?
Because I'm sure they thought that they weren't going to have anyone fucking play it if that was the case.
I guess that's fair.
So regardless, so I went into it kind of thinking it was going to be that, but Eamon had messaged me earlier because I was like, "Oh, I'm going to play Scorn,"
right.
And he was like, "Oh, by the way, it ain't a shooter," and I was like, "Oh, okay." It's actually an obtuse puzzle game, and when I say that, I mean it is a puzzle game that tells you nothing. It doesn't tell you how to play the game. It doesn't tell you what things do what. It doesn't tell you fucking anything. You just get thrown into this game and you just figure it out.
Interesting.
And I will say that I didn't realize how much I missed playing obtuse puzzle games until I started playing this game again.
Right.
Because to some extent you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing? Tell me. But also, I love that I'm not being told how to play this game, and that I'm getting through this game without having ever like looked up anything, but like I'm just figuring it out. And like it's still pretty linear, but I know that for some people like they are having a very hard time with it, but like I'm having so much fun because I don't remember the last time I had to like when I was like playing a video game where I had to like fucking rack my brain on what the fuck I was supposed to be doing. But in a way that I knew I could figure this out. I was just missing something, right? Like, where in most of the time, like, they either will just straight up tell you or, like, you just fucking missed some goddamn item that you're just, like, you know, because you're busy, like, shooting 50 billion people in the game and you're just like, oh, like, I just got to run back and pick up this item. Like, it's not like it was a puzzle. You just missed the thing.
Right.
And, like, it's so nice. Like, weirdly so nice to not be handheld in any capacity or regard at all.
Right.
Like, it's just, hey, fucking figure it out, you idiot. And then you're just like, oh, okay. Like, there's one of the first puzzles in that game is you have to move objects to move one thing to what you're supposed to get. I forget what those puzzles are called, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, you got to move one object. You got to move an object down so that way you can move like the goal left, and then you got to do that in case that wasn't clear what I was trying to say. So you get to that puzzle, but like nothing tells you what you're supposed to do with this. Like, you walk up to this fucking in this room, and it's an empty room, and you walk up and there's like a fucking control panel. You interact with the control panel, and all of a sudden you're like a crane thing that can move, and that's it. You're just like, okay, well, there's a glowing thing at the end of this.
Right.
So I clearly have to get something over there. So like you move the crane around, you press A, and all of a sudden you go in, you grab something, and you're like, okay, well now I'm holding this. And then you like move the control stick, and oh, it doesn't go that way. Oh, it goes up though. oh, it doesn't move in this spot. Oh, it has to be connected. Like, okay. But nothing in that puzzle makes it seem like it's supposed to be what gets to the end, really.
Right.
Except for I was looking at it and I was like, well, one of those has like what looks like a metal circle on it, vaguely. But none of the others do.
This one is slightly different.
Right. Literally, that was all it was.
Right.
It's like slightly different. And I was like, well, none of the other ones, they all look the same. So I'm going to go with this one looking slightly different. Must be the thing. And so moving all the things around, get it to the end, go to grab it and like finish the puzzle, pulls the thing off and it breaks. And I'm just like, that wasn't the one. Okay. So I get like another one over there that looks the same as the others, and then it doesn't grab it. And I'm like, okay. So there's got to be another one that looks slightly different that I'm just missing. And I'm staring at this fucking screen. And I'm like, there's one that looks different. Okay. Do everything over again. Get it over there. Fucking picks it up and then places it in the thing. And I'm like, yes, awesome. And I was playing this, and Kieran was there, and he was like, how the fuck were you supposed to? I was like, it was the only one that looks slightly different. Like, I don't know. It's in the same vein of like with movies where like sometimes I want something to not hold my hand, right?
Yeah.
And like sometimes for movies, it depends on what kind of movie you are making, because like if you're making this like wildly, drastically different, like fucking cyberpunk-esque world, like, sure, you need some things to be explained to you because you're just like, it's so different.
Right.
But realistically, I feel like for the most part, you can do show don't tell for basically anything. No matter how different it is, there is still some inherent, like, function that would be understandable to us, because we can't create something that wouldn't be understandable to us.
I feel like, to bring it back to Westworld for one hot second, in Westworld, they don't tell you anything really in the first episode. You're just like, okay, this is what this is. And you take it for a fact.
Right.
And then, like, as you move along, you're getting, like, open into more things and interactions and experiences.
Right.
But they're never, like, outright blankly like, this is X, Y, and Z, and this is its function, and this is why we have this here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they even carry that out, like, into season 2 and 3, to the point where they drop you into, like, a totally new location, literally don't tell you anything.
Right.
You're just like, okay, we'll just figure out the rules of, like, this new location. Which I really appreciate, because I'm just like, yeah, I could believe that would happen in this kind of environment.
Right. I think that that kind of stuff is so much more needed, especially because like I was talking with someone recently that recently a family member had a kid,
Right.
and they were talking about how like a bunch of studies have been shown that like TV before like 5 years old really hinders kids like social skills and problem solving skills. And the more I was thinking about it, because like, you know, they just had the kid. I'm assuming they did the research.
Right.
You know, like I have no need to look that up.
Right.
But I was thinking about it just like in a general sense without having like looked up any data. Just that like in this conversation, I can believe that.
Right.
Because like everything holds your hand for the most part nowadays. Like
Yeah, it's
everything
weird.
usually has an exposition dump somewhere, and like you don't need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so like I kind of get it in that same vein where it's just like sometimes you shouldn't hold people's hand, and like if they didn't get it, maybe they just need to watch it again. Like I don't know, it's because sometimes it is a hindrance, because I know I have like written, because like, you know, I have a letterboxd and whatnot, and I've not that I expect anyone to follow it, but I just like writing down my thoughts about like a movie I just saw. And I know at some point, I'm sure I have some things written where I'm like, nothing was explained and nothing made fucking sense.
Right.
And like, and in that vein of like a Christopher Nolan movie, like
Right.
Tenet,
Right.
where like things that aren't explained should be explained, and things that are explained made no fucking sense. So what the hell's the point?
Yes.
Because like
I
Christopher
really
Nolan
like
movies are
Tenet.
so up there. I don't.
Oh,
I
they
think-
are really up their ass, but I did enjoy
I think
Tenet.
Tenet is such a new level of up its own fucking ass that like I'm like, dude, Get out.
I am usually like pretty anti like pretentious artsy fartsy like high art kind of stuff.
Visually beautiful movie.
But I enjoyed it, especially because I went into watching it with my brain turned off because I was really there for the visuals.
Right.
So I didn't really care like what happened. So I was just like, yeah, I like this.
Yeah, like
Surface level.
And there is credit to what Nolan does, but I think that like when he does have exposition, it doesn't help anything.
Can I say something controversial?
Sure.
I don't know if it's controversial.
I'm gonna look up my Tenet review.
But I feel like it is controversial. I think Quentin Tarantino is overhyped. I think I've watched like 5 of his movies, and they were all just okay. Except for Kill Bill. I did really enjoy Kill Bill.
Certainly a take. I understand that Tarantino is not for everyone, but I think he makes some pretty solid fucking films.
I guess just in my mind, I don't really see anything there that's like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. This is like the best thing since sliced bread. You know what I mean? I don't think any of his movies are bad by any means. Right. If anything, I think they're all really, really good. I just do not see like the god status of filmmaking that he's been given.
I think that
it could also be that I'm just like not educated enough to like truly appreciate these things, but
I don't know if you need to say that you need to be educated for Quentin Tarantino, but I think that like he is a certain type of filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And I like absolutely he is not for everybody. But like sometimes his movies are just fucking fun. Like Django Unchained, fun movie. Like I just like I don't know, like it's I think that like aesthetically he makes a very pretty movie and they're shot well. I feel like they're usually pretty tight. Like they're not game changing, but like I think that I don't know. I feel like he made his own corner in media enough to be like he deserves the name because he has his own thing.
Right. I guess
that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish things wouldn't be so handholdy anymore. Like again, in video games are a big problem with that because every game is a fucking tutorial to start. Like, and sometimes I think to an extent tutorials are important, but I feel like sometimes, like Scorn, games should just kind of fucking throw you into it and figure it. Like, and I've made this point before, and people have disagreed with the idea because they're like, well, you know, some new person could pick up a game, but like Call of Duty, right?
Right.
I don't think Call of Duty should ever have a tutorial, and like people are like, oh, you know, a new person can pick up the game or whatever, and like, yeah, but even if you've never really played a shooter before, you kind of, at the very least, when you pick up a game, at least to me, when I pick up a game, I'll just hit buttons, see what the fuck they all do. Like, right. And at some point, you'll hit the trigger and realize, oh, hey, the gun went off.
Right.
And then you'll hit the other trigger and be like, oh, hey, I zoomed in. Like,
I feel like there should be a middle ground in that you can, like, opt out of playing the tutorial. Like, when you get a, like, let's say you got a brand new game, and then you're, like, putting it in your device or whatever, and, like, a screen will come up and be like, do you want the tutorial? And you can click yes, and then it will just do the tutorial and then continue on your way like the game is like normal. Or you can say no, and then it will just start you at the beginning of the game, and you just figure your shit out by yourself.
Yeah, like, because, like, old games, right? Like, you know, fucking NES and Nintendo 64 and shit like that. Like, there were no fucking tutorials, and you just got thrown into the goddamn game, and you figured it out. Like, one of the perfect examples of that is Mega Man X, and this is coming from a sequelitis video by Egoraptor. And I had played the game too as a kid, but or not as a kid, but like older, and it does do this, but he puts it very well, which is like you start the game and it's like it tells you nothing, you're there.
Right.
And you're just like, all right, cool. let's hit buttons, see what happens. You hit an arrow and you start running one way. And you're like, all right, cool. You hit an arrow, you start running the other way, but there's a wall there, so you can't go that way. So you got to go one way because it's a side scroller. So you just go that way. And then, you start going, and all of a sudden one enemy shows up that's like rolling across the floor, and you're like, oh no, like what do I do? And say you don't hit any other buttons. You just run back to where you started, and then the thing rolls and hits you, and you realize, oh, hey, I have a health bar.
Right.
Cool. And then you're like, all right, well, I got to be able to do something. So you start hitting buttons, and you realize, oh, hey, I could jump this thing. All right, cool. And then you get to another enemy after you jump over some of the rolling ones, and there's one that is now like walking, and it's taller, and you can't jump that. So what are you supposed to do? And you're just like, hit more buttons, and all of a sudden, oh, hey, the B button shoots things.
Right.
Cool. I shoot stuff. So maybe if I jump up and shoot things, I'll hit this guy. And all of a sudden, bam, look, you did it. It's dead. You can keep running now.
Right.
So, like,
but I feel
it's teaching you without teaching you.
I feel like you're also coming from a much more, like, experienced mindset where, like, as somebody like me, where I've played, like, maybe 3 video games in my whole life.
Right.
I do inherently click every single button, but then I don't remember what things did because I'm an idiot.
Well, I was going to say because you're an idiot.
That's really a personal problem. But my other thing is that for some reason in my brain, I have a really hard time, like, remembering certain, like, combination of buttons, if that makes sense.
Right.
So unless it's, like, written down, click these 2 specific for X, Y, and Z, I will literally, like, I'll know what I want to do, but then I'll click every other button, and I'll be like, why is this not working?
Well, when I'm saying, like, and with the Mega Man example,
right,
of why I don't think that the experience of playing games matters in that example, is that if you don't know anything, right, you'll run back and hit that wall, and all of a sudden you'll take damage and realize, oh, hey, I have a health bar. Like,
right,
you don't need to know anything to be like, oh, well, I got hit and that thing got lower. Like, okay, well, I got to not get hit, so let's run back that way. And oh, hey, there it is again. Like, how do I not get hit? Press a button. I can jump. Like, so you jump over the thing. Like, I feel like without even knowing anything, like, that's still, like, it is teaching you by making you do it without just being like, hit the A button to jump.
right.
Jump.
Slightly related, but not really. Do you ever get confused with, like, different controller layouts?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Like, it depends. If I'm playing the games enough, sometimes I'm like, it'll click in that I'm playing a different game and I'll remember. But, like, recently, I've been playing Gotham Knights with Eamon.
Oh, how is that?
The story so far has been very fun. I do think sometimes it suffers from, like, kind of being stalely written. Like, the characters don't feel like real. Like,
right.
But for the most part, all characters feel like a real person. But it does suffer sometimes with that writing. But the combat, and I feel like it's almost unfair to compare it to, like, the Arkham series because it is its own thing. But I feel like it's inevitable that it would be compared to the Arkham series.
Right.
And
I feel like
its combat is not trying to be the Arkham series. So it's not like you can be like, it's bad because it doesn't do it, because it's not trying to be. But it is not as satisfying as the Arkham series. It is still I didn't think it was going to be as fun as it is, but the combat is fun. But it is not as tight.
Do you think they're trying to, like, stray from the Arkham series kind of?
Because
I feel like they were doing that for a long time.
I think that because this isn't the same studio that made the Arkham games.
Oh,
it made one of them, which was Arkham Origins, but that was like an in-between game thing.
Oh, okay.
I think they were purposely not trying to be that. Like, I think that was their point. And so for what they made, I think it is fun to play. It still suffers from some issues, like traveling the city, where in the Arkham games, like in Arkham Knight, I think they this isn't the same team, but in Arkham Knight they perfected traveling a city in a way that is fun yet feels like you are getting around quickly.
Right.
Which is, you can grapple to something and then like you could like basically launch yourself off that grapple and glide, and you could just like kind of
Ooh,
glide
that's
the city.
fun.
Yeah, it's great. And or you have the Batmobile, and you can drive around, and you feel like you're going fast.
Can
And-
you run people over?
Technically, you hit people, but there's like tasers on the car, so they get tased out of the way because Batman doesn't kill people. But
Tased out of the way.
but getting hit at the fucking 120 miles an hour by a 30
And
ton tank.
And with tasers,
Yeah,
you're
you know.
fucking dead.
Because tasers will ignore all of the inertia behind the weight of that.
Yeah, you're fucking dead,
Yeah.
bro.
But
You didn't even just get hit with a car. You got
Yeah.
tased at the same time.
But in Gotham Knights, the motorcycle feels really slow, and like it does technically cover ground pretty quickly, but it feels slow.
Like in the graphics, like you know how
Like you are getting to your destination, you can watch the meters like tick down, and like you are getting there fast, but it doesn't feel like you're getting there fast. It feels just sluggish.
when you're is this like third person?
Yeah, it
Point
is
of
third person.
view?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're watching essentially like yourself zooming through the city,
Right.
does it feel like you're like making tracks, or like when you're watching it seems like, oh, I've only hit like this building?
Yeah, it just feels like you're going slow.
Interesting.
And like and that's like such like a hard thing to nail down, but it does feel like you are going slow. And then the grappling mechanic in the game also like nowhere near as rewarding and satisfying as the one in Arkham Knight. And I understand too, like you couldn't really just do Arkham Knight's thing again because like Red Hood doesn't have a fucking cape. So what the fuck is he launching himself off with? He's not
His
a guy.
leather jacket.
Right. Like you could argue, yeah, you could have gave Nightwing like a wingsuit, and Batgirl has a cape, but in this game, Robin doesn't have a cape, so what would he be flying with?
Robin doesn't have a cape.
in this game.
Really?
Yeah, he has like a vest thing. Anyway,
All right.
yeah, but like so
I feel like Robin's a cape man.
not in this game.
Rip.
So so you can make the point of like what would you do with Red Hood and Robin, right?
Right.
If they designed them in a way that, and you could argue like you could probably have given Robin a fucking wingsuit too, but let's
But
just keep it to
yeah.
Red Hood. Red Hood has never, except for his really awful designs, has never had a cape
Yeah.
or any way to sufficiently glide or anything,
Right.
to my knowledge.
I feel like you're pretty knowledgeable.
How would you design it in a way that he could be getting around the city in a quick manner? And
Jetpack boots.
sure, but like so you figure out like, okay, well, what, you have 3 characters that can like fly around and 1 that can't, and it's like,
Right.
well, I mean, I guess it is what it is. I don't know, like, and I'm not this person to figure this out.
No, I understand
But-
what you're saying.
But so their like midway solution to this was
Do you
that
play as every character, or just you pick
can.
one?
you pick one, you can swap at any time.
Oh, okay.
And their solution to that was like everybody can grapple, which the grappling in general is just not as satisfying.
Smooth?
Yeah, it's not very good. And then when you're grappling, you can jump, and when you like get to the end, you'll jump a distance, and everybody, I think to my knowledge, jumps the same distance, and like you just kind of keep doing that, and you keep going over and over again, which is like fine, but it's nowhere near as satisfying. And
As
then
being a flying squirrel.
right, and then you unlock like their travel abilities, which Nightwing gets like a fucking glider thing. Batgirl can use her cape, and Robin, I think, teleports or something. He uses the Justice League's teleporting
Okay.
thing. Like he doesn't. And then Jason, because Red Hood, the magic guy, gets magic, and he can fucking use jumping magic to like keep himself aloft, and he jump. It's really fucking stupid.
I feel like Jason would be really skeptical against magic.
Yeah, like
Even
their
being
reasoning,
part of like the DC universe,
Yeah.
I feel like he'd be like, no, that was fake.
their reasoning is that he was revived in the pit, and the Lazarus pit is like weird bullshit, and so it affects
The Lazarus
you.
pit is magic,
Yeah.
essentially.
So he has like some kind of thing, and like fine, like fair enough. Like there's been worse reasons that they've given Jason magic in the comics.
Explanation.
Because they've also given magic-esque things to Jason in the comics at one point or another, and it's also been about as hand wavy as a reason, and they've all been bad.
Just stop giving him magic.
Yeah, but
Mans does not need magic.
He doesn't. But the problem with those traversal things is that they don't, like, they are fine. Like, Jason's looks stupid, but it's fine. But it doesn't feel fast either. Like, you don't feel like you're gaining a lot of ground.
Right.
So, from what I've been hearing online at least, is that once you get the option to fast travel to, like, a bunch of points, everybody will just go unlock all the fast travel points and then just fast travel the rest of the game.
I guess
just
that's
because
fair.
it's just like it's the quickest way, and every other way doesn't feel like rewarding. Like, you don't feel a need, unlike in Arkham Knight, to drive around in the Batmobile. You don't feel a need to get on the motorcycle. You don't feel a need to fucking grapple up and then launch yourself and fly. Like, it's such a big map, and there is no satisfying way to traverse the map that it just makes you want to fast travel everywhere.
Right.
Which I have to imagine as a game designer, for like, you put in all that effort to make this big ass city and you know, try to make it feel alive and stuff, that's a bit of a bummer that, like, everybody's just like, yeah, we're just fast traveling because nothing feels like it's,
yeah, that kind of
like,
stinks.
Yeah, like, it's such a big area, but yet I have no desire to
like,
traverse
look around.
it. Yeah, like, I just have no desire to traverse it. If there's something on the map, I'll go there, but like, the traversing's not fun, so I'm not spending a lot of time doing it.
Right.
You know?
Which I also feel like maybe, like, could lose some of, like, the charm of
Yeah, 'cause,
the
like,
world building, because you're not seeing, like, the little things. You're just going to, like, major points.
Yeah, and I think it also I'm going on an Arkham Knight and Gotham Knights tangent, but like, I also think the problem is, as much as so far as I have liked the storytelling and the character interactions, even though admittedly sometimes they are stiff and feel cardboard cutout-esque, it also slightly suffers from, like, when you start playing Arkham Knight, and again, I feel bad comparing it, but I feel like it's bound to happen.
Right.
When you start Arkham Knight, you are basically, like, inundated with like 5-6 different, like, side quests that feel part of the world that you immediately are, like, given to, like, run around and get, and, like, you find and stumble upon and stuff. And in Gotham Knights, because in Arkham Knight you start off on one island and then you unlock well, I mean, technically you can fly to them at any time, but, like, you can't drive to any of them and you are stuck in one of the areas, kind of thing.
Right.
And so you spend time going around because at some point, like, you have to wait on missions to spawn. And Gotham Knights also has a thing where they're like, oh, you have to wait for something to be analyzed to go run around the city. But it's like random crimes stuff, not like, hey, we just found a dead body, go analyze it and let's go figure it out. Like, it has that aspect, but not in a way that it is as interestingly done.
Right.
Because technically you'll go and you beat up some criminals for stealing a car, and then all of a sudden that adds to, like, a case solving thing we're getting, and it doesn't feel very, like, connected. And I've heard from some people that, like, they're like 12 hours into the game and they've only done, like, 2 side mission, like, bosses stuff, and I'm like, that seems weird. Where, like, in Arkham Knight, 12 hours in, you've fought like 8 or 9 different, like, rogues gallery criminals already, you know, like, and so I don't know, and I get
it's
that
just
it's
not enough happening, like, it's too slow,
and it's such a big, like, the map is huge too, and it just feels like, and you have access the entire time, which is fine, like, I think that's good, but, like, it doesn't feel like it is alive enough that it makes me want to go around and traverse it instead of just fast traveling to immediately where I need to be for a mission.
Right.
Where in Arkham Knight, like, I know there's a mission over there, but, like, while I'm flying around, like, oh, there's a dead body, like I know that that's going to lead to something. Whereas it's like, oh, those are just some criminals, like, I'm sure that might lead to something, but it doesn't feel as
necessary
there.
to, like, go and check it out.
I will say, though, one of my favorite things is whenever I'm seeing on TikTok, like, cutscenes of interactions from like side interactions of characters. Any of them that involve Jason, loser Jason fans get all up in arms because he's like, not an emo fucking ball of emotions and anger. He's like actually like in therapy and trying to work through his trauma of being dead. And like they're all fucking up in arms. He's like woke now and shit like that. And I'm like, dude, fuck off. This is actually an interesting take of the character. Like his design, I don't like at all. Actually, I think his design is really bad. But I think that it's at least an interesting version of Jason that like
right. Like how long can we do brooding Jason for? Come on.
Right. Like he's still like the one that like is like the brooding like angry one, but he is actively working at being a better person.
Right.
Like there's an email, like because in the game you get emails, and there's one of Barbara emailing Jason, and this has nothing to do with the story, but it's like a side thing that doesn't actually lead to anything but spoilers. It's like Barbara emailing him, and she's like, "Oh hey, I heard Dick and Tim talking about that they want to go to the Pride Parade in full costume, and I assume they're inviting us. They just haven't talked to us yet. So like you down?" And so then it's an email chain of Jason responding, and he's like, "I'm not usually one for parades and being out in like crowds, but for this, I'm happy to make an exception." And then Barbara responds, and she's like, "All right, cool. So I'm definitely going rainbow cape, but since you don't have a cape," and then in parentheses like, "boo, hear me out, rainbow hood." And like that little stuff, like that's fun,
right?
Like,
that's cute,
and like, and I like that it like feels like there are other cutscenes where like he's trying to have fun, and all of a sudden like something triggers his like whatever he's got going on, and whether it's PTSD or something, and like he starts like having an issue, and someone's like, "Do you need help?" And he's like, "Just give me space." And then like the characters are like, "All right, well, hey, like I'm gonna go get like your favorite fucking burger chain because I'm now hungry. Like, do you want something?" And he's like, "Yeah," and like he's trying to work through it. And like, that's interesting because realistically, he would probably have some fucking problems with being dead and being brought back to life.
Right.
Like he missed years of his life. He was fucking murdered brutally. Like, he'd probably have some goddamn
things
trauma
to work through for sure.
Yeah. So I think that is interesting, and anybody that says that is reverting his character or making him less interesting, you're wrong, because there's only so much I'm the angry one that you can take.
Yeah.
It gets boring after some point. Like you need diversity, and Jason is an interesting character and has so much potential to be a really interesting character.
He just needs more depth.
But people just write him as the angry guy that died.
Right.
I'm just like, yeah, but like there's more to him than that.
Right.
And I do like that they seem to have understood that and touch on it. And I do think that some of his mannerisms and some of the things he does say in the game are still very lackluster. He permanently stands in the had to do it to him pose when he's talking to people.
No
matter what. And I'm like,
why?
I don't fucking know. And like, and some of the things he says are like stupid and dumb. But like they understand that like, he talks about like needing a library and stuff because Jason's actually a huge book nerd. Like he reads nonstop, and like he's actually pretty like smart and whatnot, and they lean into some of that. So like at least I feel like they understood the character more than like I feel like some people have writing him recently.
Right.
So at least that's nice.
Yeah. So it's a good little upswing.
Yeah. So it's fun. Just don't go into it expecting an Arkham game.
Right.
And I think you'll like it more. Like I originally started when they first press released and everything for this game, I was thinking like, oh cool, like we're getting an Arkham game with like with 4 characters, that's great. And then each time they kept releasing gameplay, I was like, this looks kind of bad. And honestly, until I got the game, I was like, this gameplay is gonna be fucking garbage. And some people still don't like the gameplay, and like that's fair. Like it isn't as tight, it isn't as smooth, and like but it's also trying to be its own thing. And I think overall it is fun. I have not played much of it. I think because I'm playing a co-op with one of our friends, Eamon, and so I'm not trying to go past because I have it on my Xbox and on PC because it's not crossplay, so I have it on PC to play with Eamon, and I forgot I pre-ordered it on my Xbox, so I have two. So I'm not trying to play past where we are. So obviously when you're playing with another person, it takes fucking longer to get through the story.
Right.
So I'm not very far in. I think we've done like over 5 or 6 missions. But so far it's been fun. Who knows? Maybe my opinion will change when it goes on, or it'll be better.
Right.
But I'm looking forward. Like I'm looking forward to keep playing it, and I'm hoping that we get through it soon because fucking God of War Ragnarok is coming out soon, and I'm gonna be fucking playing the shit out of that game when that comes out, because that comes out in like November 12th or something, or 7th or something like that.
And could. Don't know.
I am gonna be gone from the world. I am going to be only playing that game. I'm so excited. But yeah, so that was my rant about
So happy for
Gotham
you.
Knights. Yeah. And Persona 5 came out on Xbox, and so I've been playing through it again to get another 100%.
Number 4?
5.
Oh my goodness.
100% run
No,
number 5.
Fourth time doing it, I mean.
Yeah, 5th time.
Oh, 5th time, okay.
It's the 5th time doing it. Because I've done it.
I heard the story.
Yeah,
And
well, because
everybody else has
I played
too.
the original one twice. I
Yes.
played Royale twice, and then I'm playing this one at least once, probably twice once I get New Game Plus, and then I'll probably be like, fuck it, I'll play through it again on New Game Plus. And then so that'll be a solid 6 times that I've 100%ed Persona 5.
Yes, completely necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. So much fun.
Not at all.
So much fun. Anyway, thanks for watching this week's episode of the Vaguely Anime Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, follow. Don't forget to check out Kat at Kat the Moonstar on Twitch, and we will see you guys next week for Anime Club for Trigun. One of my favorites. It's not in my top tiers, but it is very good, and I think it's a good classic to have
I was gonna say
seen.
it's a good classic.
It's a classic for a reason.
It's one that everyone's like, oh, have you watched this show?
Yeah, and if anything else, the new one's coming out, so now it makes sense to watch it, and I'm very excited for when that new one comes out to see
When is that new one?
I think it's next year.
Neato.
So yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get it. I'll find out what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week, and bye.
We'll see you later.